Hey everyone, Carmen Rios here, digital editor at Ms., and I'm live at NWSA once again with Jennifer Baumgardner and Amy Richards from Soapbox and Makers and Feminist Camp and Dottir Press and all of these fabulous feminist projects. And thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And yeah, so I feel like the question that I should ask you guys first is the question I've been asking other people last, which is that the theme of the conference of sort of envisioning a feminist future and radical visions of the future. And I feel like that's the work you guys have been doing all along and for forever. So I'm just curious as to what is that vision that sort of guides you all in your work through all of these different projects and awareness projects and feminist campaigning and all this different work that you've done. What's sort of the future that you're working towards?
I think one way I tend to look at it a lot is the idea that feminism theoretically or ideally is this philosophy or space, actual physical space, that allows you to bring your whole self in the room with you. And then we're often asked to sort of divide ourselves up into these either socially acceptable parts or to edit certain things that are part of us away from whatever space we're in order to be accepted. And that's really negative and unhealthy, and that feminism allows us to be integrated. And that's the future I think I'm working for, is where we can all be integrated selves in harmony with or not necessarily harmony, but in communication with one another.
I think feminism, there's a lot of talk about doing the most that we can do, and I think in reality it's about doing the least that we can do. Meaning that I think it becomes so part of our everyday mundanness. And one little thing I've been doing just in my own micro way is every time I've asked my gender, if it's not relevant to the sentence, I'm just leaving it out, or on a form, filling out something. And I think that, like, those are the moments when we have to practice something we believe politically, but more orient ourselves towards it personally.
Yes, and you all do such amazing media-oriented work too, and we're here at NWSA every year sort of exploring how we integrate feminist media and activism with feminist academia, and I'm sort of wondering at this moment, what role do you think feminist media has to play, and how can it best sort of advance these really critical theories as we face this really turbulent, awful time elsewhere outside of this conference center?
One thing I think feminist media still does is it helps people know about one another. I mean, it is that communication, and it still plays that part in Ms. as this sort of brand name, and I mean that in a non-cheesy way. This thing that's been around for a long time that people recognize as feminist plays a really important role of magnetizing those entities. Like, okay, this is a place where we can all meet, because there's all this new online media going on all the time. There's all these new organizations being built, but this is a place that we all recognize as feminists, where if Ms. covers you or if Ms. provides space for you, we can connect.
I think that when you look at most mainstream media, they might be covering women and covering feminism, but it's covering it as its own topic. Women are allowed to be experts on women. They're not allowed to be experts on the news, as it were, or current events, unless those current events happen to sort of dovetail with feminism or women's issues. And at Ms., women's perspective on the news is central to what it covers. And I think that a lot of the entities that all three of us work in are that same way. And I do want to just sort of also mention Feminist Camp, because I think that you just alluded to that sort of marrying of academics and sort of activism.
Yes.
I think that's what the Feminist Camp experience is all about. We sort of show what feminism looks like in real time. And again, I think because Ms. is doing it in a way that it's not sort of like feminism isn't an other. It's a thing in and of itself.
Yeah, and I did want to talk to you all about Feminist Camp, because I just always come back to how grateful I am to have been able to go to Feminist Camp. And, I did my one-day internship at the Feminist Press, and just so much of it feels like it has come really full circle, and that it was a super solidifying, like, foundational thing. And I know it's been like that for many, many, many other feminists. How did the idea for Feminist Camp come about, and how have you sort of sustained and expanded it? It's just such an amazing immersive program, and I feel like a lot of feminist programs struggle with funding or engagement or excitement, and I just would love to hear, like, the inception story of how you decided to start building that pipeline and actually made it happen.
Well, I think we were touring so much on college campuses, and one day Amy was like, gosh, we go to all these places and we magnetize community because we're there and we're this weird thing coming in. It'd be so cool to bring people to our world. And also, I think you'd always wanted to call camp, because everybody has this kind of positive associations with camp.
Yes.
And so it's like a bunch of strangers come together, and by the end, they're best friends for life, you know?
And it's an experience that you can't really explain to other people. I mean, that's one of the things that you end a week of feminist camp and you go back to your other life and you say, I just did this thing, feminist camp. And everybody, for the most part, looks at you like, what are you talking about? And it doesn't matter so much that those people know what you're talking about. It matters that all the 700 plus campers that don't know what they're talking about, and they magnetize that. And I think we sort of keep evolving feminist camp. One, because there's, I mean, what is there, 800 women's studies programs across the country, and those are sort of our most obvious feeder to camp. But really, feminist camp is open to anybody looking to learn more about feminist camp. So that's sort of in terms of how we include individuals into the camp process. And luckily, we can make it affordable because we do some additional fundraising, but also universities understand as a value added to their campus and their students, so they'll underwrite that experience. And then in terms of the issues and the actual experience that happens on the week, there are always new issues in feminism. And even if it's not a new issue, it's a new perspective on it. And you know, we cover reproductive justice, but sort of talking about doers on that day, talking about anti-shackling legislation. You know, there's constant ways that we can sort of reimagine that day. And then there's days that are sort of newer, you know, looking at the prison industrial complex, like through the lens of sort of female experience. And in this era, sort of, you know, anti-policing, anti-drug looks different than it did 5 years ago.
Yeah, and you know, you two wrote some really foundational texts that I read, that I love, Manifesta and Grassroots. And there's been sort of, I've noticed a lot of similar books coming in this year in the wake of the women's marches. And I know there's so many people sort of trying to figure out how to start engaging with feminism. And it's a question I get a lot from younger feminists. And I'm just wondering what your advice would be. Want to get started, but they don't know where, or they don't know how they can be most useful and how they can make an impact. I'm curious, how can people just sort of get active?
I think independent bookstores in terms of the space, and specifically feminist bookstores, but if you don't have a feminist bookstore, an independent bookstore is a really great place to feel like you're entering and you're not going to be judged, and it'll be a warm, welcoming space where you can learn more by reading books, but also because of the people that are drawn to those spaces. And then on a more philosophical level, I think it's really important to start really close to home as opposed to way outside of you, because we all have things going on that we know a lot about because they happen to us, and that's often the best entry point into feminist work, is the connection to self.
And you know, Jennifer said that, you know, feminism is often in the first invitation to bring your whole self forward. And I think that in the same way that we all have things that make us unique, not always for happy reasons, we also have strengths that are uniquely ours. And I think that feminism is an invitation to sort of maximize that strength and sort of more tactile. I mean, you might be a great graphic designer. You might understand how to do social media. You might be a lawyer. You might be, you know, somebody who has a massive followers. And so figuring out what's your unique connection and leveraging that sort of in the name of the issues that you care about. And don't try to do everything. I think that they talk themselves out of feminism before they get talked into it, meaning they think they have to end sexual assault. You know, that's a great end game, but it's going to be a long time before we do that. And it's going to start by us saying, really personally, you know, our own stories. It's going to be talking to our own workplaces and saying, this didn't make me feel comfortable. Is there a way we can work to make this more comfortable for all of us? And starting in the small ways that aggregate and make a more biggest impact.
Awesome. And also, I know we did a Q&A earlier this year on Ms. About Dottir Press and your latest adventure. And I know you're both just always working on so many amazing things and have your hands in so many different amazing feminist pots. And I'm sort of wondering what projects folks can connect to and support right now to sort of advance your work and your mission.
For Dottir Press, I would say the biggest thing is to look at our roster of books that are coming out. One that actually Carmen Rios brought to me called Intersection Allies.
I was so excited about it.
It's really cool. I'm really grateful. This is the feminist cabal at work.
Yeah.
But the first children's book is called Not My Idea, a book about whiteness. It's the first children's book to name racism as a problem of whiteness and to provide connective tissue for affirmative, you know, actions that white people can take to contribute to affirmatively racial justice. of color have been saying for a really long time that they want white people to address their racial ignorance, and I think a children's book is a great place to start.
Well, connected to Ms., I'm a producer on a play that's happening right now called Gloria of Life.
Yes!
And while its sort of single focus is the life of Gloria Steinem, obviously Ms. Magazine is a big piece of that, and it's my personal favorite moment in the play is when it looks at the importance of Ms. initially sort of for journalists and for women's issues, giving them a space to vocalize that, but ultimately for the readers, when Ms. landed in their laps then and now, sort of what that means to them. So there's that, and then Makers is something that continues to sort of fuel me on makers.com, and it's a great storytelling platform. And what I love about it is that you can have Oprah, who many of us know, next to Julian Cassidy, who's a plumber many of us don't know. And so it's a constant way to sort of expand our impression of the ways people have made an impact on America.
Yes, and also if you go to Gloria Alive, you get free issues of Ms., free years of Ms. And you're both in many ways still in the Ms. universe and alumnus of Ms. And I'm curious as to what impact feminist media has had on you. I know that that's a large ask of both of you because you work in feminist media, but I'm curious as to like your entry point into it and sort of how it has sustained the work that you've done, and also how why you chose to explore feminist media as the sort of home base of the work you were doing.
For me, feminist media kind of gave me my career. Like I started off at Ms. Magazine, as you say, as an intern, and all of the major growth that I've had has been at this intersection of feminism and media. And Manifesto, when we wrote that was the moment that I really felt like I could start understanding what activism is and what it meant to be a public figure, and that it was different than trying to be an actress. I was sort of understood what it meant to go out there and talk to people around the world and around the country. So to me, feminist media has been everything. And also, just before I was either a feminist or a media person, I loved those things. I loved magazines and I loved books. And I was drawn to feminism from the earliest age. And it was really Ms. Magazine being on the coffee table that was a touch point for me.
That, and all of that. And then I'll just add that I think my responsibility over the last 10 years has been to sort of take feminist media into places that are less feminist, and specifically a project with Vice, even the Makers Project, which was both a combination of PBS and AOL and now Verizon, and sort of saying, like, here is the feminist piece, and integrating it into that sort of more mainstream media and media platforms, and understanding sort of the value of feminism there. I always say to Makers in particular, Makers without feminism looks like any other thing celebrated. It looks like, a Dove ad, but with feminism added, it has this sort of heft behind it to show that, like, this isn't something that we woke up and formed. It connects us to a long lineage of speaking up and raising the volume on women's stories for a long time.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
It's so fun. And I will send links in like the comments and the description of the video to the play, to Dottir Press, the Q&A, so that folks can stay connected.
Great.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Can we hug you? We work the microphone. Okay.
Okay.
You're both so fabulous.
Bye. Thank you.
you.
Okay.